In the last video I uploaded on December 4th, I talked about the content that I ended up cutting from my time in Spain with my friend Antonio from my book, Losing Linda May, a Cancer Caregiving Memoir. Well, after Antonio returned to the United States, I actually continued on to Athens, Greece for a solo leg of the trip, and I ended up cutting content from those days in the book as well. In the first moment I included for December 11th, I'm in my Athens hotel room on the balcony, which overlooks Acropolis. I take a picture and I text it to my mom. Well, before any of that happened, I actually went on an entire date. So I had matched with this guy on Tinder while I was still in Spain. I had set my location to Athens so I could preemptively get matches. So when I arrived, I didn't have to start from scratch. So I had chatted with this guy. We had set up to hang out in this trendy part of Athens, grab dinner first, and I thought it would turn into a whole night out, and then we would go back to my hotel room and hook up. But he was just not really my type. The conversation wasn't there, and it wasn't because he didn't speak English very well. He was actually quite fluent. There was just no chemistry. So by the end of the meal, which was actually very good, I just told him I was really tired from traveling and that I was going back to my hotel room alone, and that was it. So when I got the message from Demos to FaceTime, I was kind of thinking, this is my opportunity to rehabilitate this evening. Like, I thought it was going to be this big night, my first night in Athens, and then it ended up not being the case. But here Demos was asking me to FaceTime, and maybe he wanted to meet up. So that is why I was more eager to connect with him in that way versus a normal evening. I probably wouldn't have just hopped onto a FaceTime call with a complete stranger. Also, we did talk about astrological signs in that conversation, and I just didn't end up including in the book. But that's the reason why when I do go over to his place, the first thing I do is actually look at his entire natal chart and read it to him. I cannot overstate just how muscular Demos was. He was by far the most muscular person I have ever been with. And when he was standing next to me, it was just like polar opposites because I was so tall and lean, and he was just absolutely jacked. At the time, I didn't realize that he was 100% using steroids to help get him that physique, but I wouldn't have changed my mind about hanging out with him. It's just now I'm just much more aware of how the bodybuilding industry works. Despite the fact that he could have overpowered me and taken advantage of me, he was actually quite nervous, a little timid, not remotely aggressive. And after I finished reading his astrological chart, we moved to his couch and we were kind of cuddling, watching a Greek soap opera with no subtitles. So he was laughing beside me. I was sitting there absolutely lost. He didn't seem to have that awareness that I wasn't really able to engage with the material that he was showing me. Eventually he started making out with me, and we transitioned to his bedroom and then started having sex. But what's interesting about all of the spaces within his apartment was that they were very barren. They had the essential furniture, but that was it. There was like no decor anywhere. There was no personal touches. It just felt like he had moved in the day before, but clearly he had been living there for a while. To me, it felt symbolic of the economic state of Greece, which really had not rebounded from the financial crisis of 2008. And it's something that I noticed throughout my entire time in Athens. I did end up staying over at Demos's place because by the time we were done hooking up, it was like 3 a.m., but he only had a twin-size bed to share, which was not sufficient for two people of our stature. He was cuddling me the entire time, which I hate while I'm trying to sleep. So I got maybe an hour or two of very restless sleep. So when I start my touristy day on December 12th in the book, I was so depleted and fatigued. But I didn't want to just go back to the hotel and nap and miss the opportunity to see all these major sites of Athens. I didn't end up including any moments from my time at the Acropolis Museum, but I was absolutely blown away by it. It is a must-visit destination. Of course, it will always appear on every top 10 list for Athens, but it's one of those that you don't actually want to miss. Sometimes those lists contain things that are major tourist traps. This is not one of them. However, the sleek, modern, expensive building did really stand in stark contrast to the impoverished state of all the local individuals who I was seeing. And it just reinforced this idea that because tourism really feeds a lot of families, that is what the government was funneling all their money into versus really lifting up their local populations and helping out with socialistic endeavors. So as much as it was really incredible, it was also just a little bit sad. I just felt this really strange feeling the entire time I was in Athens. as I'm spending all this money and disposable income and seeing so many people clearly struggling. The emptiness did really further my feeling of aloneness for this part of the trip because I didn't have a companion with me. I don't like traveling by myself on vacations. It's fine if I'm going somewhere for work, it doesn't bother me. But when I'm going to experience things, I want to share those with another person. I want to talk about what I'm experiencing. I want to create memories together so we can share them in the future. When it's just myself, it just feels so flat to me. And even though you have those opportunities to meet with locals when you're traveling alone, that takes time and effort, and there was always risk associated with it. At that point in the trip, I just didn't have it in me to navigate another language barrier and invest all this time getting to know someone new, only to leave the next day and probably never see them again. So I stuck it out alone. I went back to my hotel room. I got takeout for dinner. I chatted with my mom. But instead of just going to bed and having a great night of sleep before my flight, I decided to waste several hours on Grindr in hopes of having one final hookup. But my European trip did not finish with a happy ending. In the next video I'll be releasing on December 19th, I'll be talking about when hopelessness becomes evident in your loved one when you're their primary caregiver. So hit subscribe, leave any questions in the comments. The link to my book is in the description, and I will see you all on the 19th.